And they were 12 of 46 from three. And these two teams will reconvene in the ATL in late March. Now, what a win for the Golden State Warriors. 120-97, the final score. You just heard it from Tim Roy there on the broadcast. The great Tim Roy here on 95.7 The Game. And now it's Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game after another Warriors win. They bounced back from a loss last time out On Monday in LA, their first look at the brand new Intuit Dome down in Inglewood, California. They return home for just one game. Now they're back out on the road. We'll get to that later, but the Warriors take care of business. 120-97 was the final score. After the Hawks got off to a decent start, the Warriors kind of took over midway through the first quarter and then led the rest of the way, and they ultimately win, again, by a final score, 120-97. The Warriors did this on the defensive end. We'll talk about some of the offensive contributions because Andrew Wiggins was amazing in this basketball game. Steph Curry was his normal great self, but the Warriors just suffocated this Hawks team today. First of all, want to welcome you all to Warriors Live. I'll get to all the numbers, and I'll tell you everything you need to know about the Warriors defense. But you can give me a call. You can shoot me a text, 888-957-9570. You can join the program, or, again, you can just text 888-957-9570. That is the Comcast Business text line. I have it up right now. Shout out to the 707, the 415 already chiming in. I see the 510 as well. Yes, a nice Warriors win, 120-97 over the Hawks. Again, this was a defensive performance for the Golden State Warriors. They put up 120 points, and that's kind of their average, right? And you just got to get used to that in today's NBA. Teams are scoring around 120 very, very often. And it wasn't a bad offensive performance by any means for the Warriors. It got a little bit stale, maybe late third quarter and into the early fourth quarter, but it never really felt like the Warriors were in any danger. They ultimately win again by 23, 120-97. But in today's NBA, anytime you can keep an opponent under 100 points, you know you had an awesome day defensively, and that the Warriors did. Atlanta, 105 field goal attempts. How about that? But only 35 makes. They go 35 for 105 from the field, 12 of 46 from downtown, and only 15 for 24 from the free throw line. Both these teams weren't very good from the line today, but for a change, the Warriors were actually the better of the two teams on the court shooting free throws. But Atlanta, again, 35 for 105 from the field, 12 for 46 from downtown, 15 for 24 from the free throw line. Those are shooting splits. We hear it all the time, like, right, Steph Curry is chasing the 50, 40, 90 mark. That's 50% from the field, 40% from downtown, 90% from the free throw line. The Hawks as a team were just absolutely pitiful in the shooting splits. They go 33%, 26%, 62%. That's 33% from the field, 26% from downtown, and 62% from the free throw line. This Warriors defense is proving over and over and over again that they're a championship-level defense. And so much of what the Warriors do, it starts on the defensive end. They forced 17 Atlanta turnovers. By the way, if you were listening on Warriors Live, I told you to bet the over 16 turnovers for Atlanta, and oh man, it hit by just one, but it hits all the same. 17 turnovers for Atlanta. The big number here, though, is points off of turnovers. The Warriors turned those 17 forced turnovers into 22 points. Every time the Warriors got their hands on a loose ball, they were pushing relentlessly. And when you've got players like Wiggins and Kuminga and Draymond Green, who I still think is a little bit disrespected around the league for just how fast he can push the ball, push the tempo when the ball is in his hands. Steph Curry, we know about him. Buddy Hield, I wasn't quite sure what kind of player he was in the fast break, but man, does he run the floor well. The Warriors have all these players that can run the floor better than most of their opponents that they're playing. Warriors turn 17 turnovers into 22 points. You look at the flip side of that, the Warriors committed 15 turnovers themselves, which isn't great, but it's not absolutely terrible, right? We were talking about on Warriors Live, in the Warriors' 3 losses this year, they average 19 turnovers per game. In the wins, it's right around 13.5. So this is a little bit more than their average in wins, but it's nowhere near what they average in their losses. So this is an okay number. I think Steve Kerr would want to see it a little more around 12 or 13 than 15, but it is one that you can live with, especially when you're forcing 17 on the other side and scoring 22 points off those 17 turnovers. But where you get the difference is, again, 17 Hawks turnovers, 22 easy points for the Warriors. 15 Warriors turnovers, but only 7 points off those turnovers for the Hawks. So while the turnover battle overall was relatively even, this game changed in the fast break, and the Warriors dominated in the fast break. How about some of these numbers? Fast break points. The Golden State Warriors, 21. And the Atlanta Hawks 14. So that's a difference of 7 points in favor of the Golden State Warriors. They dominated in the paint, and a lot of that is because of those fast break buckets. Those are, generally speaking, uncontested layups and dunks. 62 points in the paint for the Warriors, only 40 for the Hawks. The Warriors, despite a real big man, despite any real big man, right? I mean, they've got Kevon Looney, but he's 6'9". You got Draymond Green, who's maybe the smallest big man, the smallest, most effective big man in NBA history. But you're able to control the paint on both ends of the floor. And the Hawks, I mean, they got length everywhere. I mean, maybe aside from Trae Young, their starting four is Dyson Daniels, young, athletic, lengthy wing. You got Clint Capella. Of course, us Warrior fans remember Clint Capella from his time with James Harden and Eric Gordon, right? And the Mike D'Antoni Rockets, when those two teams went toe-to-toe, it seemed like every year in the postseason. Jalen Johnson, who was maybe the Hawks' best player tonight. And then the first overall pick in this most recent draft, Zachary Risache, who has got length out the wazoo out of the youngster from France. I mean, they got length all over the place. Clint Capella is a legit center in the NBA, maybe not a legit 7-footer, but he's kind of an old school big man, one that the Warriors don't really have. But they got length, and the Warriors somehow make it all work with what they have defensively, and they dominate the paint. They dominate the passing lanes. They lead the NBA, or darn near close to the top in the NBA in deflections, in steals, in turnovers forced. They were fifth most turnovers forced per game coming into tonight. And the defense was just absolutely incredible once again. They were stifling. A good question here coming in on the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. The 510 asking any update on Brandon Podziemski's injury. Good question, 510. Steve Kerr has talked postgame, and he said that the x-rays on Podziemski's nose came back negative, which is good news. And Steve Kerr called Podziemski day-to-day. He got hit in the face, I guess, right around the nose late in the early in the fourth quarter. And he stayed down for quite a while, ultimately came off and walked right back down to the tunnel towards the locker room, got those x-rays, but Steve Kerr saying they came back negative, and he is officially day-to-day. That, if he misses time, the Warriors are going to have to figure something out, because you're already down DeAnthony Melton, and based on how the Warriors had used Melton, they really believed in him as kind of the secondary ball handler behind Steph. And tonight, before that Podziemski injury, the Warriors had either Steph or Podziemski on the court 24/7. One of those two were on the floor for the entirety of this basketball game until the Podziemski injury. I guess it still was true after that, because Steph came in once Podziemski went out. But then when Steph checked out for garbage time, that was when that trend no longer continued. But essentially, the Warriors are always going to have either Curry or Podziemski on the floor as that group's primary ball handler. They very rarely overlapped. So that seemed to be the plan for the Warriors. However, if Podziemski misses any time, again, according to Coach Kerr, and we'll hear from Coach Kerr a little bit later on here on Warriors Wrap-Up, the x-rays on his nose, negative, and he is officially day-to-day. Remember, he did break his nose in the preseason, and as a result, he had to wear a mask for about a month. A little more than a month, in fact. And he was talking during that month how the mask was kind of impacting his depth perception because, obviously there's holes cut out of the mask, but it kind of messes with what you're seeing. And he felt that was a reason why he got off to a really slow start shooting the basketball. He still hasn't really recovered shooting-wise just yet, but he didn't particularly enjoy shooting with that. I'll just say that. So we hope that doesn't he doesn't have to go back to that at this point. But the good news is the X-rays were negative for Brandon Podziemski. The Warriors, though, again, they rode their defense, and then they just got an awesome performance offensively from Andrew Wiggins. We got to spend a lot of time giving this guy his flowers, because Andrew Wiggins was amazing in this basketball game. Not his highest scoring game of the year. He had 29 in the Warriors' home opener this year, that rough loss against the Clippers when they turned the ball over 21 times, and really it was just the Wiggins show, and that was the game where Steph rolled his ankle twice in the second half and ultimately did not play for the majority of the final fourth quarter. The final 16 minutes, the majority of that he did not play. And so Wiggins tried to bail him out in that game, but he couldn't. He was still very good on the basketball game. But for my money, this was Wiggins' best performance of the season. It was a more complete game. He was more efficient. He was hitting tough shots. Man, was he good in this basketball game. Wiggins, in 30 minutes, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, did not turn the ball over once, and blocked 2 shots. He was 12 of 17 from the field, 3 of 6 from downtown. He was a plus 27 in his 30 minutes. That means when he was on the court for those 30 minutes, the Warriors outscored the Hawks by 27 points. The Warriors ultimately win this game by 23 points. Andrew Wiggins was a gigantic part of that. And as you kind of begin to look at Andrew Wiggins' numbers, and you think about, can he get back to his form in 2022? It's looking like he's getting back to that form. Again, Wiggins tonight, 27 points, 12 of 17 from the field, and 3 of 6 from downtown. Let's take a look at Wiggins' numbers so far this year. This was entering tonight. There'll be a slight uptick in all of these numbers after what he just did. But he's averaging 15 points per game. He's shooting from the field 44%. He's shooting 38% from downtown. In the 2021-2022 season, when he was the Warriors' second most valuable player in a championship postseason run, he scored 17 points per game that year. He's at 15 right now, off by a couple, but up from 13 points he scored per game last year. He shot 46% from the field in 2022, 44% right now, which is actually down from last year as well, but it's close. But the three-point shooting is back up. 39% from downtown in 2022, 38% right now. He was a tick under 36% last year. So he's making threes at a higher clip, and his offense is really coming around. And tonight, again, bar none, it was his best game of the year. And I'd have to go through the game logs for Wiggins' performances last year. Might have been Andrew Wiggins' best performance in a couple of seasons. I think he had a couple of moments last year where he might have broken out for 36 points. I remember one game here at Chase Center where he was just hitting everything that he saw. It might have been against his former team, the T-Wolves. I can't remember exactly. I can check on that during a break for you. He's had higher scoring games, no doubt. But in terms of a complete basketball game, I thought this was one of Andrew Wiggins' best in recent memory. He was very good shooting the basketball. Again, efficient. 12 of 17 from the field, 3 of 6 from downtown, 27 points. But we talk so much about Wiggins and effort level and intensity and how active he is. And a big number that kind of encapsulates all of that, it's the rebounding category. 7 rebounds today for Wiggins, and also 4 assists, and he didn't turn the ball over once, and he blocked a couple of shots. And you know what you're going to get from him on the defensive end. He was very good against various wings for the Hawks today on that end, but he might have been even better offensively. That's how good he was offensively in this game. Wiggins has really been awesome so far this year, and tonight was a very good night for Andrew Wiggins. And yeah, the 650 on the Comcast Business text line checking in. Championship Wiggs is back, ? If you're a Warriors fan, you got to hope so, because that's that's kind of been the linchpin, right? I mean, there's been a number of things that have happened for this Warriors team and obviously around this Warriors team the last couple of years. But you think back to what worked in 2021, 2022, obviously you know what you were getting from Steph. Draymond was still Draymond, and there were some, different pieces that were on this roster. Clay was still around then. Of course, that was the year he came back. And obviously, I mean, he played very well when he first came back and helped the Warriors through the rest of that regular season, had his moments in the postseason. I think he scored 30-something in that Game 6 clincher against Memphis. I remember those loony, crazy offensive rebounds, kickouts to Clay. So obviously there were other reasons. Jordan Poole was so good, especially early in that season before Klay Thompson had returned. So there were other pieces and other reasons why the Warriors won it all in 2022, but a big part of it is Wiggins. And how many times has Steve Kerr talked about it has to begin on the defensive end, and that really fuels everything that this team does? I thought that was on display all night tonight. Again, the defense leading to the offense. So much of the Warriors' offense, and it's kind of chicken or the egg, right? Because you get a team scrambled, then they turn the ball over more, then you're getting more looks the other way. But I really think it begins on the defensive end. The Warriors get some stops. They push. I mean, they're even pushing off of made baskets, by the way. There were a couple of times the Warriors got a fast break bucket, or at the very least, got a good look, or got fouled and went to the free throw line off an Atlanta-made basket. The Warriors are pushing the tempo relentlessly. Sometimes it's off a made basket, but oftentimes it's off a stop and a defensive rebound, and Kuminga or Wiggins or Draymond or Steph or Buddy Hield or anybody pushing the tempo and getting the Hawks on their back foot. It's turning into easy looks. And that's not even considering the deflections and the steals that turn into wide-open dunks or open corner threes. So this is a Warriors team, I think, that really, really, really has to begin and dig in on the defensive end, and that's what's going to lead to everything else. And that's what had been missing the last 2 years, if we're being honest. The Warriors weren't a terrible defensive team the last 2 seasons, but it was nowhere near what they were in the 2022 championship year. You go back, obviously, to the KD era, nowhere near that. And obviously, those teams were also like game-breakingly good on offense. But it has always been the defense that has kind of been, I don't know if the calling card is the right phrase, right? Because you got Steph and you got Clay, and back in the KD era, you got 3 of the best 3-point shooters ever. Like, that's kind of the calling card of the team. Just at any moment, they could catch fire and they'll put up 50 on you in 1 quarter and the game's over. But the backbone of this Warriors team has so often been the defense. When the Warriors have been at their best, it has been when they have a top 5 defense. And right now they have a top 5 defense. They have not had that each of the last 2 years. So, and to bring my point home, I think the linchpin to all of that, obviously it's Draymond and he's great, and Kevon Looney and Trace Jackson Davis learning, and obviously when Melton was here and playing, he was a big part of that. The bad news for the Warriors today, D'Anthony Melton will undergo ACL surgery and he is out for the season. But I think the linchpin, if we're trying to find differences between the last 2 years and this year, it's Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins has been awesome, and obviously you think about what the last 2 seasons have meant for him. It's been, with the team, away from the team, emotional, dealing with family stuff, and trying to kind of restart. I mean, you remember he missed the final 25 games of the 2023 season leading into that postseason against the Kings, and he returned for Game 1 against the Kings, right? Like, that's not easy to do. That's difficult. One, you're playing without maybe your second best defender besides Draymond Green, and probably your best perimeter defender. And then he has to come back and try to get back in the flow of things right when the playoffs start. So having Wiggins here and available and having him as locked in as he has been, I don't think we can overstate how important that is. The 262 on the Comcast Business text line. Wiggins being a reliable number 2 adds so much order to this roster. And yeah, you're right. I mean, if you just get 15, 16 points from Andrew Wiggins every single night, you get the 5 or 6 rebounds, you'll get great defense. That is so valuable to this Warriors team, and it's really what they have been missing. So Wiggins deserves, I think, a ton of credit for how he's played so far this year. And if he keeps that up, obviously there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I'm sure there will be things that go wrong. Things have already. I mean, D'Anthony Melton out for the year. That is a major blow to the Warriors. We can't hide that. We can't pretend that it's not. That is bad news for the Golden State Warriors. Now Podziemski, who knows? We'll see. They don't have a lot of ball handlers left. Like that's going to rear its ugly head at some point. Like imagine if Steph Curry, knock on wood, misses 3 games like he did earlier. Who's going to handle the basketball for the Warriors? Who's going to handle the basketball for the second unit? Is it going to be Buddy Hield leading the offense? Not that he's not capable of that, but the Warriors do have some issues. But Andrew Wiggins can kind of fix or, put a Band-Aid on a lot of those things if he keeps playing the way that he is. He has been very, very good in this basketball game tonight, of course, but very good this season as well as the Warriors win. Again, final score 120-97. This is Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. Would love to hear from you, so you can give me a call and join the conversation. 888-957-9570. This game, it was kind of weird because the Warriors, a little bit of a slow start. It wasn't terrible. The Warriors have had some slow starts this year. They get down by like double digits in the first 6 minutes. This wasn't that. It was kind of a back-and-forth game early. The Hawks even had a 1-point lead, I think, with like 6 minutes to go in the first. And then the Warriors just piled it on, and they built a 31-point lead early in the second half. They were up by 25 at half, scored the first 6 out of the break, led by 31. And it felt like the game was over at that point, honestly. And it's kind of how Chase Center felt. It's here at Chase Center right now. The fans were obviously into it, but it was a 31-point game. And you're thinking, all right, we got the job done. It's over. Let's pack it up. 11th win of the year. Handled business. Let's head out to New Orleans and get this thing done. It wasn't that simple, and it really has kind of been that way for the Warriors this year. The Hawks got it down to 15 at one point. And at that point, you could kind of hear some murmurs throughout the crowd. Steve Kerr called a frustrated timeout or two as well. And it kind of feels like, it kind of feels like the Warriors getting a 30 or 31-point lead may ultimately be like a bad thing, because the Warriors led by 31 in Houston, if you remember, the first game of that 5-game road trip where they went 4-1. Remember, they beat Boston, they beat OKC. That trip began with that overtime win in Houston after blowing a 31-point lead. They still found a way to win that game. And then to close that trip, I just mentioned the win over Boston and OKC. Remember, they led by 30 against OKC in the third quarter, like relatively late in the third quarter. And then OKC came firing all the way back. I think they got back within 4 or 5 at one point with like 3 or 4 minutes to go in the fourth. Warriors ultimately hold on and win that game, but it kind of felt like that for a little bit. You get up by 31, the Hawks come all the way back to within 15, and you're thinking, oh man, if they get a stop, hit a 3, get a stop, fast break bucket, suddenly this is like a single-digit ball game, and we're a little bit worried about how the team responds from here. But then Curry came back in, Wiggins came back in. Who knows if those two, or at least Curry, would have come back in if Brandon Podziemski did not get hurt. I think the Warriors were really trying to not play Steph for the entire fourth, and the time and score was kind of sitting right there in that no man's land where I wouldn't be shocked if he were to come back in, but you could also maybe try to save another minute or two, and if the lead stays around 15, 16, if it goes back up to 20, great, you don't need to play him at all. But Podziemski goes out. Really, Steve Kerr has no choice but to put Steph Curry back in. He puts Wiggins in with him, and then those two almost single-handedly offensively iced the game. Wiggins hit a tough 3. Steph had a step back, a classic Steph step back from the right wing, and then the game's over at that point, and the Warriors ultimately go on to win by 23. 120-97 was the final score, but it did get a little hairy for just a bit. Not saying anyone was out there thinking that the game was in a lot of danger, but considering some of the experiences we've already had for the Warriors this year when they get 30-point leads, this was A little similar, and never got back within single digits, though, when the Warriors ultimately put away the Hawks relatively easy in the fourth, to the point where they got a few minutes of garbage time for some of the guys deeper down the bench. And again, they ultimately win 120-97. So Steph Curry was very good. I mentioned his step back three. In this one, he finished with 23 points 23 points on 10 field goal attempts. Talk about efficient. That was efficient for Steph Curry. 23 points, 7 of 10 from the field, 4 of 6 from downtown. He had 4 rebounds. He had 8 assists. He had a couple of steals. Did turn the ball over 5 times. The Warriors committed 15 as a team. He committed a third of them. There were a couple more of those, like scratch your head, why you trying that pass, which has obviously been a point of discussion of late, specifically what happened in L.A. against the Clippers on Monday. It's kind of what you get with Steph, though. The way that he plays, he's going to invariably turn the ball over a couple of times, but there were a couple of moments where you just kind of left scratching your head. Other than those turnovers, though, he was very good offensively in this game. 8 assists. He was the last Warrior starter to score in this basketball game, because like a lot of teams are doing, they're blitzing Steph, they're forcing the ball out of his hands. But when you do that, you've got advantages at almost every other spot, because so much of the defense's attention goes to Steph, whether he has the ball or not. And if you're face guarding him, you're denying him the ball, or he has the ball and you're doubling him or tripling him to get the ball out of his hands, you've got advantages almost everywhere else. And Steph has shown a willingness time and time again to take advantage of that advantage that the defense is giving the Warriors, not worry about his scoring, just worry about getting the Warriors the best look they possibly can. And that was the story early. Again, the last Warrior starter to score was Stephen Curry, but he helped ice the game along with Andrew Wiggins. He finishes with 23. Steph does 7 of 10 from the field, 4 of 6 from downtown. In his 30 minutes, a plus 27, the same exact plus minus as Andrew Wiggins. Draymond Green, though, in 27 and a half minutes, a plus 29. He had 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists. He did not make a three. He's been really good from deep of late, but 0 for 4 from downtown tonight. He was a perfect 4 for 4 inside the arc, though. Draymond Green was. He was efficient and his normal self tonight as well. Didn't get double figures in any single stat, but he was darn near relatively close to a triple-double. 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists for Draymond Green today. Okay, Warriors beat the Hawks 120-97. They are now 11-3 on the season. They continue to defend home floor. We can talk a little bit more about that. We got to talk about Jonathan Kuminga as well. This Warriors team just plays such a fun brand of basketball. We can break that down as well. Plus, I got to tell you about the play of the game tonight. I'll tell you about that on the other side as well, and we will hear from Steve Kerr after the Warriors win tonight. Again, 120-97 over the Hawks. All right, Warriors wrap-up continues right after this. It's Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center. We're back with more right after these messages on 95.7 The Game.
You hear that? That's the sound of another year counting down.
Welcome back. Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center after another Warriors home win, 120-97. The final score. The Warriors now 11-3, and they're 5-1 at home. They've won their last 5 home games. Remember, they opened their home slate this season with a rough loss to the Clippers when they committed 21 turnovers. That was when Steph rolled his ankle, the same ankle, twice in like a span of 15 real minutes, like 4 minutes of game time. They've been undefeated at home since then, and that's a big number, a big category for this Warriors team. Remember, they were only 21-20 at home last year. They were one of the best road teams in the NBA a season ago, but they were league average at home, 21-20, and the Warriors so far 5-1 at home this year. They're 11-3 overall. And they're feeling pretty good about themselves through 14 games. You are a little bit concerned with some injuries. DeAnthony Melton is out for the season. If you missed it, the Warriors announced earlier today, about 2 hours before tip, that DeAnthony Melton, despite the fact that he did not fully tear his ACL, is going to undergo ACL reconstruction surgery. So the strain was significant enough to the point where, surgery to repair it was the safest, best course of action. DeAnthony Melton got multiple opinions on it, and it seems like the consensus was surgery is best, but ACL surgery also means your season is over. So DeAnthony Melton will not play the rest of the year for the Golden State Warriors. Unfortunate, because he's a key piece of this Warriors team. Don't let the success without Melton early in this year fool you. He's a very, very good defender. He can take some ball handling pressure off of both Steph Curry and Brandon Podziemski, and he can hit the 3-ball. Those are 3 very, very key characteristics that now the Warriors kind of lack. Who can take pressure off of Steph? Who can play good perimeter defense? And who can hit the 3 that can also do those other things? Like, there's not a lot of that on this roster. So the Warriors are going to have to figure some things out there. Now you factor in Podziemski, a little banged up. He got hit in the nose again today. That was in the fourth quarter. He had to check out. Remember, he broke his nose in the preseason, had to wear a mask for over a full month, and it kind of messed with his shooting early in the year. He hasn't really fully recovered from that slow start offensively. Steve Kerr talking a little bit about it earlier this week. He's kind of pressing, maybe lost a little bit of confidence. That's normal for a youngster. We got to remember, this is a guy in his second year. 2 years ago, he was playing West Coast Conference basketball down at Santa Clara. This is a guy who's obviously had a lot of success already in the NFL. You're going to go through some stretches where not everything is great, and that's what Podziemski has been going through so far this year. But if he happens to miss time, Steve Kerr did say postgame, and we'll hear from Steve momentarily, that the x-rays on Podziemski's nose were negative, so not broken again, which is great news. He is day-to-day. The Warriors next play on Friday in New Orleans, an NBA Cup game against the Pelicans. We can talk more about NBA Cup implications in that game coming up in just a little bit. But without Melton, with a question mark on Podziemski now, you do have a big question around ball handlers who can take some pressure off of Stephen Curry, because say you don't have Podziemski for at least Friday, and I'm totally speaking hypothetical here. Day-to-day is the word from Steve Kerr. Who's going to be that ball handler with the second unit? That is something that the Warriors are going to have to figure out, and that might be something that potentially precipitates a move at some point this year if, for whatever reason, somebody misses a chunk of time, because the Warriors don't have a ton of that. I mean, we know Draymond Green can handle the ball. Buddy Hield can do it a little bit. Kyle Anderson can do it, certainly, but those aren't your real prototypical ball handlers, distributors, guys that can take pressure off of Steph. The Warriors can kind of patchwork it together, but of course you want someone who's kind of perfectly fit for that role. So that might be an area the Warriors have to address, but this does not seem to be a long-term thing for Podziemski. So he should be able to slide right back into that role, even if he misses a game, 2 games. He might not miss any time at all. We shall see. Okay, let's hear from Coach Kerr. We got to talk about Jonathan Kuminga and his minutes tonight. We got to talk about the overall brand of ball the Warriors play. We'll talk about the NBA Cup, and we got to get to our play of the game as well. All that's coming up. We got to squeeze it all in here to the next 20 or so minutes. But first, let's hear from Coach Kerr, Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, after the Warriors' 120-97 win over the Atlanta Hawks. Addressing the media, here's Coach Kerr.
Yeah, I mean, it's a frequent sight. I mean, he literally sticks his nose in there, on every play. That's why we love him. He's so tough and physical, takes charges. He's always battling for rebounds, so he frequently gets hit in there.
Would you term him day-to-day?
I'm sorry?
Would you term him day-to-day then, if X-rays are...
Yeah, I think that's about all we could do right now, yeah.
Yeah. What's just kind of, you're starting Lindy at the 2. It seems like how committed to that are you in the near future, I guess I would ask? Yeah,
I'm committed to that right now. He's a good fit next to that group. I like bringing Buddy off the bench. The bench group has been really good this year, so starting Lindy allows us to keep the bench intact and gives us another shooter, defender in the starting lineup.
Steve, this game was not aesthetically pleasing, but what are the things you did like about the way the team played versus the other night?
I love the first half. The first half was very aesthetically pleasing. We let our guard down a little bit, especially late third quarter. The game got away from us a little bit, but the energy and the sharp play in the first half was really fun to watch. So we just got to keep building on that.
Free throw shooting early on was really good and tailed off late. I think you made 11 of the first 12, something like that, 12 of the first 13. Is that just, again, happenstance, or is that something that was discussed?
Yeah, I mean, no, we just, guys have to keep working on it. So it's not something that I'm going to harp on. The guys know they've got to get the work in on their own, and we'll be all right. We'll turn that around.
All right, there's Steve Kerr post-game tonight. Yeah, free throws, something that I think we're all going to be focusing on for every single game from here on out. The Warriors entering tonight a tick under 70% on the year, which is very bad from the free throw line. 70% might not sound terrible, but across the whole league, it's very bad. The Warriors tonight, 12 of 18 from the free throw line. That's a tick under 67%. So you actually were worse tonight than your season average, and that's after going 7 for 8 from the line in the first half. So 7 for 8 from the line in the first half. You were just 5 for 10 in the second half. That was not great, and that kind of goes to what Steve Kerr was talking about. I believe the question from Monty Poole, one of our friends over at NBC Sports Bay Area, the game wasn't too aesthetically pleasing in the second half, and that was part of it. The Warriors, the offense wasn't as crisp in the second half. The Hawks were making a few more shots in the second half than they were in the first half, but it wasn't as pretty in the second half, I would say, as it was in the first half. But ultimately, the Warriors still cruise. 120-97 is the final score over the Hawks. After the first 6 minutes were kind of even, the Warriors really led wire to wire after that, and they are now, again, 5-1 at home, and they are 11-3 on the season. Okay, let's talk for a moment here about Jonathan Kuminga, because I was fascinated by his minutes tonight. I also thought Jonathan Kuminga could have been used a little bit more on Monday against the Clippers, particularly based on the way the Clippers were defending the Warriors. They were very aggressive, denying passing lanes and pressuring out on the ball, and almost to the point of overplaying, right? They were so aggressive on the perimeter. They were trying to force the ball out of Steph's hands. They were trying to run the Warriors off the three-point line. And, I mean, to their credit, it worked. The Warriors had a very bad offensive day. But who's the kind of player that can combat a defense like that? A guy who can take a team off a dribble into the paint and finish down low. And I thought Kuminga played relatively well on Monday against the Clippers and only played 19 minutes. I thought he could have played a little bit more, and who knows, might have been able to help the Warriors overcome their late deficit and maybe win that game against the Clippers. But okay, I mean, that's one game. Tonight, Kuminga's minutes were very, very interesting. He played just 13 minutes, 12 minutes and 53 seconds before garbage time tonight. In total, Jonathan Kuminga played 15 minutes and 24 seconds, but the final 2 minutes essentially were in garbage time. So a little under, 13 minutes of non-garbage time minutes for Kuminga tonight. 9.5 in the first half, 3.5 in the third quarter, and that was essentially it. Did not play the whole fourth quarter until the final 2 minutes when he got in for garbage time once Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins put the game away. I thought he was very good in the first half. He checked in for the first time, Kuminga did, with a little less than 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. The Warriors were leading by 7. Immediately checked in and had an immediate impact. A steal on one end, threw the easy pass over the top of the defense to Hield for a fast break dunk, had another steal moments later, and pushed the tempo himself, dribbled the ball up the court off the steal, drew the defense to him, kicked to Hield in the corner for an open three. He hit it. A little bit after that, he had a defensive rebound, not a steal, but a defensive rebound. Again, pushed the tempo and drove all the way down into the paint, got fouled, split the free throws, but got to the free throw line. Later, he took and made a three, and it was a good decision to shoot that one. It was in rhythm. It was off a Hield drive. No, I think it was a Podziemski drive and kick. Ultimately cycles back up top to Kuminga, top of the key, in rhythm, open, late contest, three. He hit it. It looked smooth. It looked good. He made that three. Later, he would drive again, get back to the free throw line, make both of those free throws. So a 7-point lead with about 5 minutes left balloons to a 19-point lead at the end of the first. That was a 17-5 run from the moment Kuminga checked in to the moment the first quarter ended. And of those 17 Warriors points, again on that 17-5 run, Kuminga either scored or assisted on 11 of those 17 points. I thought it was one of the better stints we've seen from Jonathan Kuminga this year. He was under control, he was making the right decisions with the ball in his hands, and he was not pressing. He was letting the offense flow through him, and when the offense was telling him, hey, this is your time to go down and score, this was your time to take this three in rhythm, he took those shots. And I know ultimately he finishes this basketball game just, let's see, he was 3 for 9 from the field in those 15.5 minutes, 1 for 3 from downtown, but he had 6 rebounds, he had a couple of assists, he had a block, he had those 2 steals I was talking about, finished with 10 points in those 15.5 minutes, but really, again, only 13 minutes in non-garbage time. Part of the reason why the game got a little bit close in the second half was a stretch while Kuminga was in. He was in for part of it in the third quarter. He played about 3.5 minutes in the third, and the Warriors were outscored by 7 in that stretch. But that was part of a larger issue that did not have to do with Jonathan Kuminga, and then he did not play for the whole fourth quarter. I know I'm nitpicking here because this was a 23-point win, but I was impressed by Kuminga in that first quarter, and I was a little surprised he did not get a little bit more consistent run in the second half. The Warriors are at a spot where they're still playing a lot of guys. They got some garbage time minutes in, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus the 5 starters. 12 players played at least 13 minutes tonight. So there will be guys on a night-to-night basis that maybe you feel like deserve to play a little bit more, and that is just the way it is with this Warriors roster, even with the Melton injury, and even potentially with another injury. There still might be guys who you feel like deserve a little bit more. Actually, excuse me, Gary Payton only played 6.5 minutes tonight. So not 12 guys playing at least 13, 11 guys playing at least 13, 12 playing at least 6+. But still, I mean, that's a lot of guys, and you don't have a ton of minutes to go around. Steve Kerr has said over and over again, it's just a math problem. You only have so many minutes, so many total minutes to go around, and some guys will be left out. I thought Kuminga played really well in that first quarter, and I was a little surprised he did not get a little bit more run. But again, that's just the way it's going to be when you are as deep as the Golden State Warriors. But I'm interested to keep an eye on Kuminga's minutes and how he performs in those minutes, because there's no doubt he wants to be starting. I think any player who has belief in themselves will feel that way, and you probably should feel that way. If you don't, maybe you don't belong here. I'm sure Kuminga does feel that way, and I thought he's taken his role as the sixth or the seventh man. Really, Buddy Hield more of the sixth man. I thought he's handled it really well, and tonight I thought he was very good, specifically in that first quarter. And then you get back in the middle part of the third quarter when your team's in a little bit of a rut, and you can't quite get that rhythm back. But overall, I thought Kuminga was good, and I will be keeping a close eye on his minutes going forward for the Warriors. All right, 888-957-9570. It's Mark Randy with you on Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. Would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a text, give me a call, 888-957-9570. That is also the Comcast Business text line. Shout out to the 262, the 650. Who else chiming in? The 707 and the 408. Appreciate all you guys tuning in here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Through 14 games now for the Warriors, they're 11-3. I don't know exactly how this isn't really new, I suppose, because the Warriors have played a beautiful brand of basketball for a very long time, really in the entire Steve Kerr era. I think the Warriors play in today's NBA one of the more exciting brands of basketball, and it is so fun to watch most nights. We were talking a little bit about it earlier, how it relates to Andrew Wiggins' importance. It starts on defense, and when the Warriors get a stop, when they get a deflection, when they get a defensive rebound, when they get a steal, even sometimes off a made basket, they relentlessly push the tempo, and they are just trying to find the weaknesses in defenses. And they do it in a quick way. They do it when they're playing their best in a very decisive way. And they do it kind of surgically, and it's really fun to see that. They're not shy putting up threes, and today's NBA fan likes to see the three balls go up, and the Warriors do it among the best teams in the league. And it's not just like hero ball. I'm going to take a deep contested step back three, and the crowd's going to ooh and ah because it goes in, but it's because of, again, the relentless tempo that they play with. It's crisp passing, it's cutting, it's smart plays off the ball, it's a selfless screen off the ball by Steph Curry that frees up Buddy Hield. This is kind of an era of NBA basketball where it is kind of about one-on-one, about hero ball. You're trying to dupe the officials into making a foul call that maybe shouldn't have been a foul call and killing you from the free throw line. The Warriors don't really do that. They play a really, really fun brand of basketball, and they're always going for the jugular. One of the parts of this Warriors team I love watching the most is when they get a stop on defense, whether it was a steal or whether it was just a defensive rebound. Watching, really, I think it's specifically Buddy Hield, but Steph does it. Draymond does it more so when he has the ball in his hands. Watching the Warriors sprint back down on offense. I'm not sure there's any team in the NBA who has more guys who consistently run as fast as they can down the court to get back and try to position themselves on offense. Like, especially when the Warriors get into a little bit of a rhythm and the crowd's getting into it, and maybe they're on a quick 7-0 run, or it's a 10-2 run and the lead's ballooned to 18, right? They always go for the jugular. Like, it happened in the third quarter, in the second quarter, when the Warriors were building that 25-point halftime lead. The Warriors would get a stop. And then on either side of the court, like it was a Draymond Green defensive rebound, and he begins dribbling up the court fast. And on one side, the left wing, you see Buddy Hield sprinting as fast as he can to the left corner. On the other side, you see Steph Curry doing the same to the right corner. And then you just got the defense who's trying to pick between Buddy Hield and Steph Curry. You're obviously going to go and defend Steph. It turns into a wide open Buddy Hield three. Like, this Warriors team, it's so fun to watch when they're playing at their best, and they were doing that specifically in that second quarter. I know this isn't, again, really new, because this has been a Warriors team that has played like that beautiful brand of basketball for a long time, but it's back. That brand of basketball is back for the Warriors. And while it had been at times the last couple of years, it hadn't really felt like this. And it feels like this once again, which I think is worth highlighting because the Warriors have had a lot of success when they play that beautiful brand of basketball, and they have been tonight. Another example of it is our play of the night. In our play of the night, it comes on a fast break where the Warriors just kind of catch the defense not sleeping, but kind of unaware. It was an alley-oop from Steph Curry to GP2 from half court when the defense was smothered all over GP2, but somehow it worked. Cam, play the highlight. This is how it sounded on 95.7 The Game.
Curry, a lob, and Payton catches it, dumps it right on the top of Bogdanovich.
And that's how fast they're playing.
Exactly. I mean, Tom Tolbert was spot on there. That's how fast this Warriors team was playing. That was an instance where the defense was actually back. It was Bogdanovich on Payton in the corner. Payton not lackadaisically. I'm not sure if he was trying to maybe deke Bogdanovich, but not like he was sprinting, cutting backdoor along the baseline. But Bogdanovich, kind of his back to the ball, kind of, face guarding GP2 as he's running along the baseline. Suddenly, for Bogdanovich, he just sees GP2 jump, and he's like, what's going on here? Like, I'm on this guy. Why is he jumping? The ball's on the other half of the court. And lo and behold, it's Steph Curry throwing a lob from half court to GP2, who's being face guarded from the corner, and it's an easy dunk because the Warriors are just moving so fast. They're catching the opponent off guard, even when the opponent is in good defensive positioning. They just don't have their eye on the ball. The Warriors are going too quick, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. If the Warriors play that fun brand of basketball, it starts with defensive stops, and then they push. They get the defense on their back foot. They're not quite set. They're not ready. They don't see their man. They don't see the ball. Whatever the case is, and it results in easy buckets for the Warriors. That was our play of the night. It was one of the more fun moments inside of Chase Center tonight, and I think that kind of play really encapsulates this Warriors season so far. And they're now 11-3, and they're 5-1 at home here in 2024. Okay, final thing to take care of before we get on out of here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game is Crashing the Boards. Crashing the Boards is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. This is an easy one. The only Warrior with double-digit rebounds tonight is Trayce Jackson-Davis, and the Warriors actually got out-rebounded tonight. 65 rebounds for the Atlanta Hawks, 54 for the Golden State Warriors, but 11 of those 54 was for Trayce Jackson-Davis. He was good in this basketball game as well. 14 points, a double-double for Trayce Jackson-Davis. He had a lot of finishes around the rim, as he always does. The alley-oops to Trayce Jackson-Davis, very fun. There was that left-handed alley-oop spike in the second half Trayce Jackson-Davis had. That might have also been a candidate for play of the night. I gave it to the Steph GP2 alley-oop, but Trayce Jackson-Davis was very good again in this one. 11 rebounds for him. He gets the honor of crashing the boards tonight, which again is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Thanks, as always, to Chilton Auto Body. Okay, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up tonight here on 95.7 The Game. Coming up next for the Golden State Warriors, it is the NBA Cup. They are taking on the New Orleans Pelicans on Friday. Tip time is 4:30. That means pregame coverage begins at 3:30 right here on 95.7 The Game. I will have you covered for that. That begins again at 3:30 on Friday. Should be a lot of fun from there. The Warriors are in West Group C. They are the lone undefeated team in West Group C. They're 2-0. Mavericks, Nuggets, Pelicans, all 1-1. The Mavericks had a dominant win over the Pelicans, by the way. They have a point differential of 38, the Mavericks do. So if the Warriors and Mavericks are in a tie, win and loss, in the Cup games, likely the Mavericks will win that tiebreaker, which means the Warriors got to keep on winning. The Pelicans 1-1, the Nuggets 1-1, the Mavericks 1-1, the Grizzlies 0-2, the Warriors 2-0. The Warriors can move to 3-0 with a win over the Pelicans. That would essentially eliminate the Pelicans. It would guarantee the Warriors a top 2 finish, most likely in the group. and they have a very good chance to win the group if they are to win on Friday. Then they play early December in Denver to wrap up group play, and we will then find out at that point if they are to advance to the knockout stage. We can talk more about that on Friday, but for now, this is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in. The Warriors are victorious over the Hawks tonight, 120-97. We'll talk Friday for more Warriors basketball right here on 95.7 The Game.
Rita, hold head. Let's bring the nail gun over here.
Jose stands tall atop his...